I'm worried. And the whole thing has a weird tilt to it that I'm really hoping doesn't mean that it's broken.
Well, if you got a dollar on just a lousy down, know that I got rhythm that could suit your budget fine. You can take or leave me, but you ain't got much time, 'cause I just keep on rolling down the line.
Hi, this is Patrick with Trusty Huckster Mercantile. Welcome to my channel. If you're not familiar with me, this Trusty Huckster Mercantile is a vintage reseller with a presence primarily on Etsy. Just starting to dabble my toes a little bit into eBay, trying to figure out that. And I've been posting a variety of videos and some different types of content over the last couple of months while we've all been experiencing a lot of alone time as we've been locked into our homes. And one of the things that I've been doing is unboxing videos, which started actually somewhat accidentally from an honest purchase of an item that I was trying to add to my personal collection that arrived in a bubble mailer. It was a porcelain mug. Now, using bubble mailers is a perfectly acceptable option for shipping. I did an entire video on shipping porcelain in bubble mailers, and if you do it correctly, you can be very successful with it. The first shipment I received, though, was not done correctly because the box they used to put the mug into did not close. So it basically shipped through the US Postal Service with a handle sticking out of a 4x4 box. And no surprise, it was shattered. So what you see at the beginning of the intro of this video, it's a recreation, but it's actually a recreation of a real event. So these unboxing videos kind of were born. This video is a little bit different in the sense that I chose a specific concept of what would happen if I ordered internationally. I'm struggling sometimes to receive shipments without breaking when they're coming from the next state over, simply because some sellers do not specialize or are not used to shipping breakables, and they don't do it very well. So when you end up shipping something across an ocean, you kind of need to know what you're doing and you need to really pay attention. And I kind of held my breath as these boxes came in, because in some cases they took a very, very long time to arrive. Now, that was not the seller's fault. That's the current situation. There was warnings. There are certain countries we can't even ship to and from. This was just a case where the system was just bogged down. So it took a little bit longer to get here, and wanted to wait until they were all here so I could do one unboxing of all three of the shipments. So what you're about to see is unboxing of porcelain and pottery, which was ordered from France, the Netherlands, and the UK. Let's see how it goes. So these are the three international packages that I had ordered through eBay and Etsy. Trying to add a little variety to the unboxing videos that I was scheduled. And I really was interested in how international shipments were being packed. And particularly with the pandemic we have been experiencing, these were delayed. So this video is coming out a little bit later than I would have liked. But they all made it, and it's worth doing an exploration and an unboxing of international shipments. So we'll start with this one, which came from France, this one, which came from the Netherlands, and this one, which came from the UK. Wish me luck. So right off the bat, we have a very nice layer of newspaper crushed into the top, which goes all the way to the top. So it was overstuffed and then pressed down. So there was no shaking, no wobbling, no issues with the material inside. It was packaged very well for transit, whether across the ocean or wherever it was headed. So they did newspaper into small pieces. Okay, so what they had done was a really nice job of placing the piece in the middle, wedging some newspaper down around the edges, pushing some more in around the edges, and then flattening on the top. So it actually had a really nice cushion all the way around. Now, it might be kind of hard to tell on the video, but It's probably about 2 inches from the top of the padding to where the box would have sealed over. Maybe not quite 2 inches, but there's padding on the piece itself. So there was probably between the piece and the box a full 2 inches of either the newspaper or what appears to be bubble wrap that I will uncover. And then there's really nice spacing on the sides, on the long sides, and then on the narrow sides, you have maybe an inch and a half or two, again, until you get to the bubble wrap, and then protection of the bubble wrap. So far so good. This looks like it's packaged really nicely. All right, so we get to a point where it took quite a bit of the newspaper to come out before this started being wiggling around. So they had wedged it in very nicely. So I'll take the piece itself out. Before we open that, you can see there's still quite a bit of padding down at the bottom. You know, a good another 2-inch layer at the bottom. So this was packaged very nicely using the newspaper wadded up in very small pieces, which would have added quite a bit to the weight, but it did a very good job of cushioning it, at least it seems to have. So let's undo the bubble wrap and see what happens. So the bubble wrap itself was not taped down, but it was pushed into the packaging so well, I don't know if that's necessarily a problem. So there's one layer of bubble wrap, 12 inches wide. Did a couple layers across till you get to the piece. So this is not an unboxing video, but this piece is in great condition. Austrian pottery, another piece that I'm adding to my collection of secessionist 1900 to 1910 European pottery. This one, I believe, was a piece of amphora pottery. It is stamped. I may do a haul video of this particularly, but what's nice is it was packaged really well, and you can see there's these little leaf forms which would have been very susceptible to breakage, which I was most concerned about, because to be perfectly honest, this was actually an extremely expensive piece, at least compared to what I typically buy. So I wanted to make sure this came in good condition, and it did. So very excited, very happy, and this is going to look great in my collection. So the small piece came from the UK. It was sent via Royal Mail. Before I get opened completely, I will say that you can actually kind of tell at the beginning this is not stuffed particularly well because this is crushing fairly easily on the top and it's bulging out at the side. There are 3 pieces of porcelain in here, so we'll see how they fared. So the paperwork showing that it came, this was an Etsy order. So inside there is some packing material at the top, but you can see through settling or whatever, it's a little bit lower than the top of the box. So you can see that there's a little bit recessed, which is why when this was closed, it was so easy to push. It was so easy to push down. Looks like there was a little bit of bubble wrap pushed to the side, and then what appears to be wrapping paper loosely pushed onto the top. And then the package itself is all within one, well, sort of one thing bubble wrap. There's another extra piece kind of cushioning to the side. And at the very bottom is a flat folded piece of wrapping paper, which I can't imagine was really adding much to the protection, because where it was sitting is basically flat. There's no padding. This is, it would have needed to have been folded up to give it a little bit of air cushioning. It's totally flat, so that probably wasn't doing much good. Let's see how the actual piece fared. It is a piece of bubble wrap wrapped in packaging tape, my absolute favorite. So it looks like there was a piece of bubble wrap on the outside wrapping the purchases, which were in another piece of bubble wrap, which also has packing tape. Okay, so as I undo this, this one, as this piece was cut away, this kind of rolled itself out. So there was one piece that is wrapped in bubble wrap. As I undo this one, you get to the other piece, which also is bubble wrapped. And then the third one seems to have had the most protection because it was set into the bubble wrap and then wrapped completely with the other two in line. So the first one was the one that got the most protection, and it also had a piece of bubble wrap. Each of these are also packaging taped. Okay, so we had one egg cup survive. Second egg cup survived. And the third piece did survive. So, to be perfectly honest, I'm a little surprised, but they did survive. This is restaurant ware, Lillian porcelain, but they do primarily restaurant ware. This is one of the oldest back stamps. It's the... No, that one's not. This one is the original back stamp. Or it's the second generation. The first one would have been that same stamp, but in brown. So this is the oldest one. This is also the oldest one. This one is one generation after it. I do remember when I purchased these, they only had shown the one back stamp. So I'm a little disappointed in that. But most people probably don't care about the back stamp, and I didn't ask. The price was decent. And figured even if I just got the one, that was what I wanted for my collection, so I'll probably sell the other two. But I did get him. They did survive, and not going to say I'm overly impressed with it, but it did work. And I want to say this was the first one that arrived. So this one took the shortest period of time to get here from the time that I ordered it. Okay, I will start off by saying this one did not have the best customer experience from day one. I purchased this through Etsy. I purchased two items, which or two lots. One of them had multiple pieces to it, but I basically ordered two things from their site. It included, I had to pay for the shipping, and the day after I placed the order, I received an email outside of the Etsy communication, which is pretty much a no-no, basically telling me that the shipping was going to be way more than they had estimated. And that was all they said. They didn't ask for more money. They just said it was going to be more than they'd estimated. And I immediately took it into Etsy, and I just simply sent them a communication, said, if you need to cancel the order, I would understand, and I won't give you a bad review. Because it's fine. You can see this box is fairly large. I've gotten nailed before where I've misestimated a shipment cost. Whatever. It happens, and I really wouldn't have given them a bad review. They came back. I think this is the negative part of me, that I feel because I moved it into Etsy and they realized it was going to be tracked, they suddenly said, no, it's fine, we'll submit the order. It took a full 2 months for this item to ship. Now, there is a date right on here that says May 12th, and I just received this on July 14th. So it was a full 2 months. I had ordered it prior to the 12th, but I don't think much earlier than the 12th. So I do think it took them a little while to get it, but then they didn't provide any information into Etsy. So as of the end of June, it still had shown that it hadn't shipped. So I had to contact them and say, hey, did you send this? Did you end up canceling the order? Because they still had my money. And it wasn't a super expensive purchase, but it was probably between everything and the shipping, it was well over $100. So it was one of those cases, look, if you aren't going to ship, I want that money back. They said, oh, no, we did ship, but for whatever reason, they hadn't updated the Etsy shipping. But they said it had shipped. They gave me the date. They said the 12th, which is exactly what it says. And I knew that international shipments were taking a really long time. Now, I didn't realize it would take a full 2 months, but it did. That's not their fault. They probably just should have done a slightly better job communicating it, because we all know there were going to be delays. And the fact that anytime I looked in Etsy, it simply said waiting for shipper to ship. Well, that's not, that doesn't provide a lot of confidence in a seller. But big box, it probably was expensive for them to ship. Let's see what survived. All right, I'll start by saying this is actually a very heavy-duty box. The box is actually double gauge. A lot of people don't pay attention to that, but shipping it internationally, that would be something very important to be able to take into consideration. It'll add to the weight because you're effectively putting two boxes together. I mean, they're sealed. It's not two boxes. I mean, they're sealed together, but it makes it a much sturdier box. This would be very difficult. It actually is very difficult. I'm actually trying to bend this backwards, and it is not bending. So it has some nice strength to it. So the box by itself would protect the goods inside regardless of how they're packed. Not going to be perfect, but this helps a lot. And more importantly, though, it does add significantly to the weight. So it's a cost balance. They already knew it was going to be more expensive than they had quoted. By adding another this heavier box probably sent them even higher. What's inside, you've got an egg carton, some of the egg carton stuff here, a bunch of cardboard, which again simply adds to the weight. So, okay, this serves no purpose at all. This appears to be a garment bag, and it's so loosely full. I mean, this stuff is so heavy. There's no way this would have done anything had these started to shift. So they were filling the void, but yeah, it didn't add much weight, but it also didn't have much purpose. So that was superfluous. All right, like I said, there were multiple pieces that I ordered, so I'm going to try and figure out the Jenga of how this went in. This appears to simply be holding the pieces together. So there's a piece here, which that freed up the piece of cardboard, so that was just padding. Another piece here. This piece here. This one has a growth. So you've got the piece itself is wrapped like the others, and then they kind of put it into this frame, which probably kept it from touching the sides because this was up against the side. So seems to be a convoluted way to do it, but it probably served purpose. Adds a little bit more weight, but it definitely would have kept that from hitting the edge. Okay, the egg crate was actually small. That was just on the side. Okay, this piece worries me a little bit because it's a long plate and they have it in here slightly at an angle, and it's hitting on 3 of the 4 corners are actually hitting the box, the edges of the box. That's not good unless it's been wrapped so that the tray itself is far enough inside that it's not touching anything, which actually is the case. Well, is the case on this side. You can see how far down the tray slid. This side, where it had 2 pieces of the tray hitting the side, you can see it actually busted through the tape because this is a fairly heavy tray. I'm worried. And the whole thing has a weird tilt to it that I'm really hoping doesn't mean that it's broken. And then down at the bottom is kind of garbage, but I'm assuming it was put in here when they packed it. It was probably put in here in such a way to protect some of the pieces from moving around. But by the time I've opened it, they seem to just be sitting at the bottom, maybe keeping this piece from hitting the bottom, but it didn't seem to be keeping it from hitting the side. So maybe at one point that egg carton one did, but let's see what happens when we actually open the pieces. Okay, it does appear that this was in 2 pieces when it was packed. So the fact that it's at an angle, I think simply is that the box, the 2 boxes are not exactly the same size. So they break that apart, that comes off. So conceptually, this is pretty good because this is padded. This cardboard and this cardboard then wrapped it, so it basically gave an extra level of protection. Where it seemed to have failed a little bit is it shifted, and again, you can kind of see if you put these together how much space was at the end compared to it sticking out of this end. So probably when they packed it, it was individually, like it was probably more centered and had a room on both sides. They needed to do something to keep it from shifting, because this shifted all the way to the end, and it appears from feeling it, I can feel the edge of the tray. So great concept, but again, through heavy shipping, and it took 2 months to get here, it did not stay in the way that they had made it. Okay, I'm not hearing rattling, so that's a good sign. Okay, so a fairly large piece of kind of probably a 40-pound craft paper. It's a little bit heavier than newsprint, but not quite as heavy as the packing craft paper that I use. Gave it a little bit of padding. It was multiple wraps, so that helped a little bit. And then it has the newspaper in between, or inside of that. It survived. All right. It's a piece of Ruscha pottery, which I was not familiar with. I actually picked this up. This is the first piece I've ever purchased. And I did it almost exclusively because I was ordering from them this other piece I've yet to open. The way I like to divvy up the shipping costs by adding this onto the others, the way they did their shipping, which, as they admitted later, they did incorrectly, but I'm sorry, I did take advantage of it. I was able to add this, and the shipping only went up a couple of dollars. So this was a nice piece that I've never seen or had ever heard of. Again, it's Ruscha, R-U-S-C-H-A pottery. And I just really liked the appearance of that, like that bird. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I don't know if I might start a new collection, but I'm not sure. Most likely I'll just resell it. And now that it's here in the United States, maybe find a market where people just, it's a very attractive piece of mid-century modern pottery. What I don't like about how it was packed is it was packed with the newsprint against the pottery. Now, it is glazed, so it's unlikely that any of the newsprint could have rubbed off onto the glaze. The back, though, is not glazed, and the edge where it was raw from the firing, that's the raw pottery. It's not a big deal if newsprint rubs off on that, but it's just, this is a case, and I had this in an earlier unboxing video. They use newsprint and they use packing material. If they had wrapped it in this first, there would have been no risk of anything rubbing off from this natural craft paper onto here. They could have then used the newspaper to wrap on the outside, and they would have had no risk of this rubbing off onto anything. It's a little bit nitpicky because it did survive, and it probably isn't something that would matter. But if this were a piece of bisque porcelain, not glazed, this, particularly the pink and the black, could rub off. And if you were to send something something as simple as a Precious Moments that's all bisque, if you were to wrap that in a newspaper, it would get that newsprint all over, and it would be difficult to clean. So that's just it's something that's come up before, so I just highlight it again. It's not changing the materials they were using, it's just using them in a different order. So there might be some improvements they could do to improve the packing without having so much weight. I think that's why the shipping was so expensive. All that extra cardboard simply just added weight. There was no change. They just switched the orders. They switched the order, and you would have been in a much better situation for newsprint. But it is glazed, so that's a what if. Shouldn't get hung up on it. It's a very attractive piece. It did survive, and I'm very excited about that. Now, these pieces were the reason I ordered from this customer, or from this seller, because I was also trying to build a couple of pieces of Lillian porcelain. Now, what was important about these is I've been working on building my Lillian collection specifically to fill in all of the back stamps so I could do a deep dive on them. And one of these pieces was the only piece I could find with that specific back stamp. So I really needed this to come in. I've since found another piece and went ahead and ordered it because I was afraid this would never show up. But I'm glad it did. Hopefully it all still came in good condition. I'll just have two pieces with that back stamp. But that was why this one was significant, and it was unfortunate that it took a full 2 months to get. So let's see how these survived. So in general, they did the same thing as the tray. They've got a piece of cardboard surrounding, actually what in this case is another piece of cardboard. This piece of cardboard was long enough that they were able to fold the edges down so it gave a little bit more protection on the ends, which was not the case for the tray. So they were able to do that for here with a slightly, not necessarily a slightly bigger piece of cardboard, but just the way they did this cardboard, for whatever reason, they were able to do that, and they did not do it for the tray. So I had one piece of newspaper on the outside, and then another piece, this is actually packing taped newsprint. All right, and it survived. This is the 50, the larger milk jug. This is larger size than the creamer. This one, I'm trying to remember which was the stamp that was missing. This is the W. This is actually a little bit later in the cycle. I don't think that's the one I was missing. So I can't remember actually. It's been so long, I literally can't remember what I ordered. I think this might be another one of the jugs. So let me see how this one looks like. This was packed about the same. So you've got the outer layer of cardboard. So this one just had one layer of cardboard, but it was longer, so it was rolled a little bit more. Okay, this one, the cardboard was slightly heavier and wrapped around, but what's important about this one is you can almost see it. This is the handle. So this literally had one layer of newsprint around it and then the cardboard. Now again, it appears that it survived, but this is the kind of stuff that you should really be paying attention to, is what's the most likely part that's going to break, and it's going to be the parts that protrude like the handle. Okay, so this would make them a matched pair. These were both the W's. So again, cardboard roll. Because it was a smaller diameter, it actually rolled around multiple times. And then a newspaper on the inside. And then this one also had the little wedge of newspaper in the middle. This one... This one is the 3rd generation back stamp. I have others of those. In there. Okay, this was the one that I was missing. So this is a short period of time in the 70s. They actually started putting the year on underneath. And it only happened for a few years, so it was one that I did not have. So all the pieces survived. So we've got the 2 cups and the 2 pitchers. These are actually considered Glühwein pitchers, mulled wine pitchers, and then the tumblers typically go with that. So this is the Alpenflora design, which is not my favorite, admittedly, but it's extremely popular and very common. So I have several pieces like this. So I think that means I now have, with the addition of the 77, like I said, I think I might have one other one now too, but I think I now have enough pieces that I can start recording my deep dive. It's going to be a bonus deep dive because it won't be a live interview because it's me. So I'm going to record it as an interview and then do it as a premiere and post it in a month that has 5 Sundays. So that way I'll still be putting out the live deep dives every other week. So anyway, this will probably go into a deep dive the end of October, if I remember correctly, is the next 5-week month. Regardless, they all survived, so yay. So everything survived. So this ended up being probably a less eventful unboxing, but still hopefully a couple lessons to be learned and some insight into what it takes to order internationally and how international shipments are taking place. Now, this may not be, and I'm going to assume is not a commonplace right now for shipments to be taking as long as they are. Again, the Netherlands shipment took a full 2 months. The one from the UK didn't take nearly that long. That probably took about 3 to 4 weeks. The one from France took a little bit longer, but again, not a full 2 months. Of the 3 companies that I ordered from, I feel that the one that did the best job tonight was the Amphora piece, which delivered from France. And so I think I want to give a shout out to that seller, and that was an eBay seller, and that was Athena IS, S as in Sam, 283. So I'll put the link to that shop in the notes for this recording. And I'll also go ahead and include the seller notes for the other two, because they did package well enough that they did survive. And at this point, anything being shipped overseas, if it may be taking longer, that means it's also going to be handled fairly heavily. So the fact that everything survived, I think they could have maybe done a slightly better job in a couple of cases, but they did do sufficiently that the pieces got here. And really, that's all that matters in the end. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you find the unboxing videos interesting, and I hope you've been watching some of my others. If you've gotten this far and you're not already a subscriber, really would appreciate you subscribing to my channel. Give the video a thumbs up, throw a comment in there, let me know other things you're looking for, and see if we can get this channel continuing to grow. I appreciate your time, appreciate you joining me, and appreciate you putting your trust in a trusty huckster. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Well, show me a sign if you're wishing me to stay. Otherwise, I say goodbye, finish out the day. And that sunrise in the morning and you got nothing to say. Oh, that's when I'll be headed on my way.